Rediscovered LA up close in ways you just can't experience while driving.
And it's a way that you can ride down these streets and see things you maybe not see when you're riding in your car.
There's some hills there, but overall I feel good.
Seizing the day, LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa announced plans for a new bike share program. It'll soon provide 4,000 rental bikes with GPS devices to be available at kiosks in Venice, Hollywood, and downtown LA.
A tremendous investment to allow people to rent a bike and go all over the city.
The group Bike Nation has invested $16 million to launch the program without city funds. Expect its launch this fall. As for Ciclavia, it's also expected to return in the fall. People already gearing up for the next one. That's on Sunday, October 14th. Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
The city is working to improve conditions for cyclists. Its goal is to build 1,700 miles of bikeways over the next 30 years. And during the Ciclavia were many community events for families to enjoy along the bike route. One of those events was a photo exhibit on the heydays of Central Avenue from the perspective of those who worked and lived there. Rasha Goel reports.
These are just a few of the 600 photos depicting life in South LA's Central Avenue from the 1920s to the present. LA photographer Sam Coleman and urban planner Jason Neville collaborated with community members who submitted their own photos to form the exhibit Central Avenue, a Community Album.
20 years after the 1992 riots, there's going to be a temptation in the media and a temptation in all of our conversations to think of this area as having just two poles. It was an intellectual center, and then it fell.
A group of colleagues, a girl on a tricycle, all photos of everyday life on Central Avenue. Coleman feels having this exhibition will help people have a broader understanding of what it means to live in this area. A 3,000 square foot retail space at 2515 Central Avenue was turned into a gallery with photographs projected onto 6 12 by 12 screens.
The area looks different than when I lived here probably 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. But it is really cool to see the transition over the past decades of Central Avenue.
And for those participating in the city's Ciclavia event, this was one of the many hot spots to check out.
We have such a great past also that it's really great to come down and see different worlds and different people.
And see how Central Avenue has been an integral part of the city of Los Angeles. From downtown, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
The exhibit ends on April 25th. A rescue dog is being hailed a hero, a folk singer honored 1 century after his birth, and a much-needed cleanup in one corner of Watts. These stories and more in City Beat. A special guest of the 4-legged variety paid a visit to City Council chambers recently to receive the special honor of being proclaimed a hero dog. Councilman Tom LaBonge honored Spencer for alerting his owner, Tim Swan, to an intruder trying to break into their home. Officers later caught the suspect.
I can tell you, if anybody out there in Los Angeles or across America goes into a shelter, you will find a special friend waiting for you.
Actress and animal activist Linda Blair was on hand to help honor Spencer. Spencer was initially an abandoned dog taken in by Blair and her World Heart Foundation before he was placed with the Swan family.
There's this really cute dog named Bambi. He's just like keep on licking my hand.
And if you'd like to adopt your own 4-legged friend and protector, you can go to LA Love and Leashes at the Westside Pavilion, which adopts out animals from the city's shelters. LA Animal Services recently partnered with SoCal Honda dealers to put on 2 adoption drives at LA Love and Leashes and West LA Animal Shelter. Those who adopted at the event received discounts on the adoption fee, which includes vaccinations and spaying and neutering. Councilwoman Jan Perry helped honor legendary folk singer and icon Woody Guthrie on the centennial of his birth by dedicating the intersection of 4th and Main as Woody Guthrie Square. The sign refers to Guthrie as songwriter, poet, voice of the Dust Bowl refugees. At one time, Guthrie, who sang about working-class folks in the 30s and 40s, lived in downtown L.A. and would even play for tips in the local bars. Guthrie dedicated his song 5th Street Blues to his time in Los Angeles. Councilmember Joe Buscaino joined officers from LAPD's Southeast Division as well as several other organizations, including the Bureau of Street Services, in cleaning up a strip of land adjacent to 103rd Street and Grandee Avenue in Watts that was overgrown with weeds. Buscaino's office organized the cleanup just 2 weeks after a community activist approached the council member for help ridding the area of trash, vermin, and homeless encampments. LAPD officials say the cleanup was necessary in order to give Markham Middle School students a safe path to and from school. And we want to take this opportunity to introduce you to Joe Buscaino, the city's newest council member. He's been in office for 3 months and has already hit the ground running. Here's a closer look at the councilman's goals and priorities for his district. A first-generation Italian-American, Councilmember Joe Buscaino's family emigrated to the United States 40 years ago from Italy to San Pedro.
They landed in San Pedro for the fishing industry, and my family instilled in me the importance of faith, of family, of community, of doing good, of serving others, and wanting to help others.
It's that dedication to public service that prompted Buscaino to first join the Los Angeles Police Department 15 years ago, and then to run for a seat in the LA City Council this past January.
I've dealt with poverty. I've dealt with businesses that have failed. I've dealt with kids out in the streets who've made some poor decisions and poor choices. And I've dealt with the lack of economic justice across this district. And I told myself, I know we can do better.
In his first 2 months as council member of the 15th District, Buscaino proudly unveiled the new baseball field in Harbor City.
It was important for me to fight for this field. In the first 50 days, I made it clear that I want to provide a better field for Harbor City residents and for the kids who play at this recreation center. And sure enough, the Dodger Dream Foundation literally came to bat for us.
But Buscaino says one of his main goals is to end poverty in the harbor area by making San Pedro's waterfront a tourist destination.
We have, decades after decades, have failed to move forward with that waterfront development. We ought to be a destination in the Port of Los Angeles. If you look at ports across America, you look at Seattle, Baltimore, San Francisco, even to our neighbors in Long Beach, it's a destination. People are coming to spend money at these ports.
While that project may still be a long way from completion, Buscaino says experience has taught him to dream big.
I remember a street called Francisco Street, where I remember as a young police officer arresting drug addicts, prostitutes, gang members. What's on Francisco today is LA Live.
Buscaino says he will be fighting for job creation, better city services, and public safety in his district for his constituents and for himself.
I'm raising my family here. My wife is a teacher here in my district, and we're not going anywhere.
Prior to being elected council member, Buscaino served 6 of his 15 years at the LAPD in the Harbor area as a senior lead officer. Thai-town in East Hollywood continues to be a growing attraction for many Angelenos. As Brian Ojima explains, a new groundbreaking project will only help to further shine the spotlight on Thai-town as a destination for tourists and locals alike.
It was a long wait, but the Thai-town Eastern Gateway project is finally here.
It all took, at the end, about 6 years from the time the statues arrived from Thailand until the statue actually got installed.
Councilmember Tom Labange joined the Thai Council General and council members from Bangkok in unveiling a statue that symbolizes protection. Store owners in Thai town hope the new project will increase business and spark greater interest in the Thai culture.
Everybody have to know this area. We have Thai, like Thai massage, Thai foods, and something like Thailand.
With more and more restaurants and businesses opening up in Thai town, the belief is that the East Gateway will only strengthen tourism in the area.
The goal would be for us to really revitalize this area, generate a local economy, and help the businesses become more viable.
Back in 2007, the West Gateway to Thai town was completed, and now with the East Gateway finished, Councilmember Tom Labange says it's the perfect vehicle to developing beneficial relationships between the Thai community and the city of Bangkok.
It's those of us who are in this Los Angeles community to help the organizers of Thai town to enhance and have it blossom, nourish, and grow as a great town within the city of Angels.
Several trees were also planted along Hollywood Boulevard to help make Thai-Town a more vibrant, attractive area. In Hollywood, I'm Brian Ojima for LA This Week.
In this week's list of things to do, a walk to help the homeless, remembering the Titanic, and a tour of 4 of LA's most exclusive homes. Saturday, April 28th from 8 to 11 a.m. will be the 2nd annual Hike for the Homeless at Griffith Park. Adults, students, and pets on leashes can hike the 2.64-mile Fern Canyon Trail or 2-mile Old Zoo Trail at their own pace. The hike, which benefits the Society of St. Vincent de Paul's new family housing project for homeless women and children, begins near the merry-go-round lot. Griffith Park is located at 4730 Crystal Springs Drive. For registration costs and more information, go to hikeforthehomeless.com. Enjoy the Titanic Centennial Lecture and Film on Saturday, April 28th at 2 p.m. at the Egyptian Theater located at 6712 Hollywood Boulevard. To commemorate the centennial of the Titanic, Don Lynch, author of Titanic, An Illustrated History and Ghosts of the Abyss, will give a talk on the Titanic luxury liner, followed by the 1958 film on the sinking of the Titanic, A Night to Remember. More information can be found at americancinematheque.com. And if you love going to open houses for a chance to peek at how the other half lives, here's an event for you. The 56th Annual Art and Architecture Tour on Sunday, April 29th, starting at 10 a.m. Docents will lead you on a tour of 4 exclusive Southern California homes chosen for their art collection and architectural design. The homes are in Truesdale Estates, Hancock Park, Windsor Square, and Coldwater Canyon. The event is presented by Los Angeles County Museum of Art, or LACMA. You can purchase tickets or find out more about the tour by going to lacma.org. And remember, you can find this information on our Facebook page. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do. With chalk in hand, Angelenos young and old channeled their imagination by putting ideas not on paper or canvas, but on concrete. Kids, you may not be able to draw on the walls or floors at home, but at the Chinese American Museum's recent chalk art event, the historic sidewalks of the El Pueblo Plaza were fair game.
On paper, I don't really like to draw, but like with chalk and stuff, whatnot, paint, yeah.
So I can see they like coloring, they like to use their imagination.
The event was a way for the Chinese American Museum to publicize its current exhibit, Breaking Ground, Chinese American Architects in Los Angeles, 1945 to 1980.
When it comes to Los Angeles skyline, we have a lot of iconic buildings, but a lot of us don't really consider who the architects were. And when it comes to architectures, a lot of Chinese American architects are overlooked, but they really helped shape our daily lives, whether it's Jin Wang, who helped develop Los Angeles International Airport, or Helen Fong, who developed iconic boogie architecture with restaurants that we know as Denny's, Norm's, and Pan's.
So to encourage Angelenos to think about the architecture around them, the museum invited the public to create their own LA skyline with chalk. Some kept it simple. Others, like Penny Richards, who is a volunteer arts teacher in Redondo Beach, channeled the hidden architect within.
I'm working from an inspiration piece by Friedensreich Hundertwasser, who was an Austrian artist, 20th century. And I think it's his vision of Vienna, mid-20th century. And it's very, very bright and colorful. His style was very bright and colorful, so it's kid-friendly for an event like this, but it's also to do with architecture.
Skyscrapers of the imagination could one day become part of the Los Angeles skyline of the future. For more information about the Chinese American Museum and its Breaking Ground exhibit, go to camla.org. And that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you could catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Hi, this is Carretero Family.
We are from East Los Angeles, Boyle Heights. You're watching Channel 35, our city, our channel.
It's 10 o'clock in Los Angeles. This is the first day of May. First day of May. May 1st. That's right, Joe. Welcome on to Calvin King, State Council Member of the Great Community.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, May 1st, and I want to welcome everybody to the Los Angeles City Council. We meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. All of our meetings, committee hearings included, are open to the public. Madam Clerk, we have a quorum. Let's get started. Please call the roll.
Alarcon, Buscaino, Cardenas, Englander, Garcetti, Weezer, Carrasco, Correa, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendale, Zion, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business.
Approval of minutes.
Mr. Parks moves, Mr. Labange seconds. Next.
Committee resolutions for approval.
Mr. Weezer moves, Mr. Garcetti seconds. And that would bring us where?
Mr. President, since today is Tuesday, now would be the time for the flag salute.
Why don't we all rise, and we'll be led by Mr. Weezer.
Please stand so we could say the Pledge of Allegiance to our great flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We should begin going through the agenda right now. If you could read the first items.
Items 1 and 2 are items noticed for public hearing. There's a request to continue item 2J to May 29th.
Okay, without objection. Members, any specials? Do we have any cards?
Cards on item number 1.
Next, I believe items 3 through 12, correct?
Mr. President, do you wish to vote on the remaining items 2A through I?
Oh, yes. So on that, let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, next.
Items 3 through 12 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Any specials, members? Any specials? Okay, on those items, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That brings us where?
Items 13 through 23 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes required for consideration.
Without objection.
And Mr. President, there is a request to continue item 15 to tomorrow, May 2nd.
Without objection. Any specials, members? Any cards?
Cards on 17, 19, 22, and 23.
Okay, on the remaining items, let us open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Englander?
I was calling 18 and 19 special.
Well, 19 has been held by cards.
Okay, so 18.
So in order to do that, Mr. City Attorney, do we have to reconsider everything?
I was standing up, but I'm short, so you didn't see me.
Oh, I can relate to short.
Council needs to reconsider item 18.
Okay, let's vote. Are we having some technical difficulties?
No. Yeah, a little bit.
So anyway, let's open the roll on that item. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, now we'll hold 18 special per Mr. Englander. That brings us where?
On the continuation agenda, item 24 is an item for which public hearing has been held. There is a request to receive and file this item.
Without objection. So let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next.
Item 25 is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes required for consideration.
Without objection. Mr. Koretz?
Yes, I have a motion to add to that item that I'm circulating that reads, I move that the matter relative to extending the application submission deadlines of Proposition K, request for proposal RFP process, CF 10-2317-S3, be amended to reopen and extend the deadline for the RFP to Thursday, May 10th, 2012 at 3 p.m.
Okay, so that's being circulated at this time?
Yes, that's being circulated.
Okay. Then any cards on this item?
No cards.
So let us open the roll on item 25. Let's close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes. And that's adopted as amended.
Okay, so where does that bring us?
This takes council to general public comment or items called special.
Okay, we'll go with general public comment. But before we do that, and Mr. City Attorney, you may need to stop me if I step out of bounds here. But members, I just want you to know how excited I am to be back at work, that I really missed you. I missed the staff. I did have a terrible fall, and I feel lucky and blessed to be here. So many of you called, many of you sent texts. Even Koretz said, I heard you got elbowed by Meta World Peace. So you can see how sensitive he was. But I truly appreciate it. And I want to thank Mr. Tom LeBons for handling last week. I mean, it was ironic that Mr. Reyes and myself would be out. But anyway, I've said this before, members, and I'll say it again. We only have this moment. So live it, enjoy it. If there are people that you care about, make sure they know that you love them. And I will tell you one funny thing about the whole incident. I get into emergency room and I have these big sunglasses on because I do look like Joe Frazier after the Thriller in Manila. And the doctor says, yeah, take your glasses off. I take my glasses off and the doctor says, damn. Now that made me want to get up and walk out. Okay, is this the first? John Walsh, if you could please come forward, followed by Mr. Herman and Gary Agas, I think it is. If you three could please come forward. Mr. Zine.
If I can just, for a moment, introduction. We have two journalism students from Pierce College, the Roundup, that are here. I'd like to introduce them, Wendy West and David Parsons. Will you please take a bow? They're here covering the City Council. Pierce College newspaper out in the great 3rd District. Also, Doug Kriegler is here shadowing me today, famous reporter from NBC4, who's siding over in the shadows. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at Hollywood Highlands, HRGHLANDS.org. There's a new post up just a couple of days ago, right here. Today is a special day. It is International Workers' Day. It is May Day. And we who occupied City Hall will now occupy the entire city of Los Angeles. Things are dead here because we are all over. And just as a few months ago I invited you to the Occupy City Hall downstairs, John Walsh did, I invite you to the city of Los Angeles, from Sylmar to San Pedro. All over the city, we are rising up. And one of the areas of corruption we're rising up is this city council. I'm telling you that the world has changed. Free. Imprisoned. You know, we usually say free, but it's time to imprison Mr. Zimmerman. Just because he looks like a victim, just because he looks oppressed, doesn't mean he isn't a fascist. And I would like to thank our great President of the United States. Of course, today is Obama Day. He is joining us. We are occupying the White House. We are occupying LA. We are occupying the world. HollywoodHighlands.org. Justice for Trayvon.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Herman. In fact, are you Gary? You come up, and Mr. Herman, make your way. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Gary Agus, and thank you for coming close to that. I live in Sun Valley and I'm a member of the Sun Valley Neighborhood Council. Recently, I've seen articles circulated in our neighborhood asking for support for Council File number CF110112 called Clean Up, Green Up. The proposal is designed to clean up pollution in toxic hotspots that suffer from a myriad of health problems. It is very interesting. It is a very interesting proposal and one that I am very interested in supporting, but it only has benefits for 3 neighborhoods: the area around Wilmington Refinery, an area in Boyle Heights, and an area in Pacoima. Why is Sun Valley not included in this proposal? Sun Valley is the second most polluted area in Los Angeles. When it comes to toxic air, we rank only behind the port areas and Wilmington Refinery. We have almost every conceivable kind of toxic polluting business in Sun Valley. You well know how many trucks come out of the port each day heading north on Freeway 5. They all come through Sun Valley. Sun Valley is probably host to more truck depots of polluting diesel trucks than any other area of the city, including the new FedEx depot. We are home to the waste management companies: Athens Services, Crown Disposal, Waste Management, Looney Bins, LA Paper Stock. All of these are presently planning expansion or building expansions in Sun Valley that will bring thousands, that's right, thousands of additional truck trips per day, all with diesel trucks. We have all trucks from Republic Trash Company parking here. This is the company that hauls their trash from all over the city's Sunshine Canyon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Herman, please come forward, followed by Mike Agara and Mr. Weissman, Dr. Weissman. Good morning, Mr. Herman.
And those who are listening, under ADA standards for accessible design, there's still an issue on the corridor of SODO, and I find it very irrelevant that we have a Senator, Kevin DeLeon, and my councilman, Jose Huizar, creating these greener park areas, but yet Hazard Park, which is on that corridor of SODO, does not have access for you to use the sidewalk safely, since there's been a barrier there now, to my understanding from Michael Carrion, for 8 years. I said it was 7 years, but it's gone further than that. In response to that, I really wish Council would take action in respects to helping people with disabilities have a safe walk and use and travel on that corridor. That's all I ask. Furthermore, when I attend Sacramento in a couple of weeks, I wish to, and hope I can make an impact or a statement in regards to the Persons with Disability Act. In addition, for the people who are out there today walking and speaking about better health services, better quality of life, this is the reason why May 1st came to be. So if City Hall is really looking in best interest of the constituents that are out there marching, those that clean your restrooms, those that manicure your front lawns, think about it. For those who wish to become the mayor, those who wish to be the next City Attorney, you're impacting our community by not using the enforcement of what city ordinance says and also what the municipal code says. I'm a strong believer in continuance, and not just in education, but in the hope that someday one councilman stands up for the belief and respects of those in our community and all Angelenos in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. If I could now get Michael Gary, Dr. Weissman, followed by Mr. Koretz.
I'd just like to ask that we reconsider item number 12 to be continued for 2 weeks.
As soon as we finish public comment, just remind me and we'll take care of it. So we have Mr. O'Gara, again, Dr. Weissman, and Michael Carrion. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, honored councilman. My name is Mike O'Gara. I live in Sun Valley. I'm here to talk to you about council file number 11-0112. This is a cleanup, green up initiative that's only going to benefit Wilmington, Pacoima, and Boyle Heights. They're going to form green zones, and green zones will receive help from city councilman champions, and they're there to improve neighborhood health and revitalize the local business. These local businesses will get priority and help receiving business assistance loans and a host of other economical benefits. Additionally, 30 public health and environmental groups are supporting this campaign. Where is the city council champion for Sun Valley? Back in the spring of 2005, Sun Valley was designated by the City Council as an environmental justice zone. We received this designation because we were one of the most underserved communities in the city, with a large number of industries that polluted our air and part of the city's water supply in the aquifer below. We thought some things were going to improve. They did not. When we went to planning and zoning to voice our concerns about businesses that pollute expanding in our neighborhood, we were told that the environmental justice zone was just a designation and it had no meaning to the city planning department or any other city agency. Now along comes Clean Up Green Up with an attempt to bring some help to some severely blighted areas, and we find ourselves excluded. You have 2 weeks before this comes before the Plum Committee, and I understand it's coming there on May 15th. I'm asking Councilman Huszar, Councilman Boscano, Councilman Alarcon, Councilman Cardenas, and Councilman Krikorian to expand this list of 3 communities to include the much underserved Sun Valley area community before it comes to Plum.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Weissman, followed by Michael Carrion.
Good morning, sir. Welcome back and welcome to Good Health. You're going to need it. We've got a lot of stuff to do. That's all right. Let me know when you're ready to go fishing there. All right. Now, the good news. Saturday there will be a meeting of the LA Neighborhood Council Coalition. A lot of very interesting things are happening there. You've all been guests at our meetings. Well, maybe Mr. Boscano hasn't yet, but we're going to arrange that soon. It's a group of neighborhood council who talk about all the issues you talk about and try to interact with you for the benefit of all of us. There are several issues that went on your agenda already. The elections, all those issues that you put forth and have just passed today, that's going to cause a lot of hassle in all the neighborhood councils. I'm sure you know that. And I think you're going to have to direct the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment to have a certain amount of latitude in letting neighborhood councils be ready to hold their elections, their selections, and not opt out. That was one of the things that the coalition strongly advised. But to do that in a way that can be done successfully and promptly. Now I'm going to change the subject entirely. You gentlemen of the council, other gentlemen here, how many of you think of what you're wearing when you put your tie on? We men wear ties, right? Yep. Especially when we wear our suits. They don't mean much. Well, watch it. When I wear a tie, it means something. This is an abstract. You people think in abstract almost all the time. Your budget is an abstract. This afternoon, Mr. Krikorian will talk about some realities. But the budget is an abstract, and it's a very difficult abstract for everybody to work with. I hope that we can bring some reality to it. We need to bring more interaction, reality to our conversations. Thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you, Doctor. Michael, carry on.
Thank you. You know, I've been coming to this city council for a few years now, and what started the whole fiasco a couple of weeks ago was exactly what's going on right now. Not one council member is paying attention to what these public comment people are saying. Then they hear something in the middle of a conversation, and then they want to break the Brown Act by interrupting you and doing all this stuff. Yet, when somebody else is speaking, Mr. Ellinger, whatever his name is, sitting there having a conversation. We sit out here and have a conversation, and the officers go up to us and tell us, please be quiet. Where's the mutual respect? That's all I asked for. Mr. Koretz got upset. It was nothing personal. What I was saying was that Mr. Labange was acting like a dictator. Okay, I'm not going to get into that, but the point that I'm making is that you people sit up there and just ignore us. This is why we get upset. This is why we speak up. We are taxpayers in this community. We deserve to be treated with a little dignity and respect. When you don't, we're going to call you on your BS. That's all. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Conversations going on everywhere. Yet nobody does nothing about it. And then they want to say they were listening to us. You know what? You want to talk about bullying. You guys brought up the subject of bullying in schools. Sometimes council members here, sitting here, bully the public. So it bothers me when you got two double standards here, and you don't respect people who come here to speak on issues that involve lives that are going on in our communities. You sit here and carry on conversations, assistants carry on conversations, everybody's talking about everybody else, except having a little courtesy for the people who come up here and get 2 minutes, to speak their piece. Okay? So when it gets to the point it gets, you've got no one to blame but yourselves. Okay? If you treat most of us with respect, we'll treat you with respect, as most of you know.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, name one time when I didn't pay attention to you.
I didn't say you, I said most.
Armanek Norajanian, please come forward, and then we're going to go to the Valley.
Good morning, respectable city council members. Good morning, fellow Angeles. My name is Armanek Norajanian, and I'm a liberal Democrat and human rights advocate. I run for the seat of California State Assembly from South Central Los Angeles, so-called 59th district. I promise to raise taxes 50% against wealthy individuals and rich oil-producing manufacturers and gasoline-selling corporations in order to remedy state budget deficits in California, create more jobs with government contracts and subcontracts. It has been done in California for decades. I propose to create a California satellite cell phone service for rural forested areas, territorial water of California shores, where actually private cell networks actually are unavailable. I also propose to create state legislation to control car jams with live satellite surveillance in order to disperse car jams on California freeways and highways. I propose to make same-sex marriage law valid. I also propose to grant 6 months free pregnancy leave for all Californian women, and also propose legislation that would grant driver's licenses to all applicants and without disclosing their immigration status. Also, as a part of my campaign to fight wasteful spending, narcomafia and corruption, I also propose a comprehensive ban against so-called medical marijuana dispensaries, as 56% of Californians voted to reject Proposition 19, legalization of marijuana, last year. And also, I demand that you city council members cancel so-called notorious city ordinance 181530 that brutally violates Controlled Substances Act by allowing sales of harmful narcotic marijuana. Also, ask your council members to cut down those egregious wages of $178,000 a year in half and give that money to city workers because...
Thank you. Now, if we could go to the Valley, where we'll have Mr. Rick Nightingale and Herbert Thompson.
Yeah, Rick Nightingale from the Valley here. Glad you're feeling better, Mr. Wesson.
Thank you.
This is regarding the LAUSD school board. You know, I cannot believe that they're going to try and drop the how many units to graduate from 230 to 170. It's just beyond me of what school is about these days. They think that if you learn to take a computer course and all that, you're going to make it through. They even want you, languages and so forth. And I don't understand it. I'm not ashamed. I was an industrial arts major. I took drafting, and I even had horticulture and so forth. And I learned something. I learned things of facts in life. Like I said, I was an electrical contractor. I drew my own prints. I learned how to do it because I had drafting. I turned around and learned different things, like the shops. There's no shops. You got an elective, and that's the only reason I really enjoyed school, because I could take auto shop, metal shop, and so forth, and I learned to work with my hands. I learned to work with people to turn around and build things. Nobody knows that anymore. Look at right now. They're closing Valley Occupational Center. People are there to learn how to pick up a trade, even to learn how to speak a language. That we complain so much about that, and they're closing that. It's just beyond me of what the school board wants of somebody to turn around and graduate. What do you think that how life is going to go on if you aren't taught that to work with your hands? Because I'll tell you, just because I hated being in a classroom, I can't stand to be in a building. I like to be in the outdoors. I knew I wanted to have construction. I made a very good living, and I was very successful. And everybody else can do it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nightingale. Mr. Thompson, Herbert Thompson, in the Valley.
Good morning, Mr. President Wesson, Los Angeles City Council board members. I'm here today representing Pacoima Community Youth Culture Center, which is an organization that was established in 1977. We was evicted as of last month from one of the CDC agencies, which we had occupied the space for years, and we did a lot of community services. We still have programs that's implemented, and we having a problem right now finding housing. And I'm asking you, Mr. President, if there's any way that the Los Angeles City Council board members can help us find housing, which we know other agencies was granted $1 a year occupancy to occupy city property. I was wondering, Mr. President, if there's any way or any assistance that we can get any help so we can house our victim rights assistance program that's doing a great job in the community. We do a lot of outreach, and I also like to thank Mr. Dennis Zine, his representative attend our meetings. The mayor representative attend our meetings. We're continuing moving forward even though we don't have a housing right now. Mr. President, I'm asking if the city council could take into consideration and lead and guide me in a direction where we can get housing so we can continue to serve the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, and maybe you should have some further discussions with Mr. Zine's office if that's the area where you're from. Okay. Oh, well, maybe you should contact Council Member Alicon's office. He said it's in his area. Okay. Now, that concludes our public comment. There are two items that we need to reconsider, though, And
You're right.
first, was it item 12, Mr. Koretz? And you wanted us to reconsider that and then continue it. Okay, so let's vote on reconsideration of item 12. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, now that will be continued for 2 weeks. And what would that date, Mr. Koretz?
That was continued as amended previously.
Okay, continued as amended.
Yes.
And the date?
Then May 15th is 2
Okay, May 15th. Okay, that also, what I'd like to do is get a vote on reconsideration on item 2. Item 2C to be exact. Ms. Okita, I did not get your card, and we already voted on the item, so if you wait a moment, we'll open the roll on reconsideration of item 2. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Yes, Mr. Parks?
I get item 2F reconsidered and continued for 2 weeks so that the building and safety and the respondent can have a conversation.
Okay, we'll do that right after this. Miss Judy Okita, please come forward and speak on your item. And Madam Clerk, do not let me forget Mr. Parks' request. Good morning.
Good morning. I've never gone through this. However, I'm just asking to get a little more time. Funding was very difficult for me, but now that I'm Social Security, I'm getting some Social Security funds, and I will have some money to help fix the place. And I don't know about the lien. I don't know if it could be reduced or somehow I could be helped with that.
Okay, so maybe I see that you were speaking with building and safety. Maybe we well, here, if we get the rep to come forward real quick. Okay, is there a way that you can try to accommodate Ms. Okita?
Yeah, we've been talking. We talked a little bit. The property owner owes $2,185.70. Today was the first time I talked to her and tried to clarify stuff. We'll talk to her for the next 2 weeks and see if we can
okay, so
agree on something.
You're recommending we can continue this for 2 weeks?
Yeah, let's continue for 2 weeks.
Okay, so on this item, and that'll give you 2 additional weeks to have discussions with building and safety to see if some arrangements can be made. So with that said, on item 2C, it will be continued for 2 weeks, which will be the 15th of May, without objection. Okay, now, Madam Clerk, Mr. Parks requested item 2F. Yes, Mr. Parks.
2H, and both of them continued for 2 weeks.
Okay, now we have to, okay, we can do them together. So let's continue those 2F and 2H?
2F and H.
Okay, I've just been informed that we have to reconsider those 2 items first. So let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, those 2 items will be continued as well.
That's for 2 weeks to May 15th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, the first item was held special by cards, so I'd like to request that Mr. Walsh please come forward, and Mr. Herman, if you could position yourself closer to the microphone, because you will be next. Mr. Walsh?
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. See our new posting. It's up right here. Again, welcome to International May Day. All over the city. Come and join us. This issue here concerns Housing Department and urgent repair. In fact, you do a fairly good job when it comes to repair. if you take a look at some of the public housing in cities like New York, this is a paradise compared to public housing in the city of New York. I left there in 1966. I don't think it's much better than when I left. And I would like to say thank you for, and incidentally, you don't allow me to speak. Ralph Brown of Modesto, California, who died 40 years ago, Assemblyman Brown.
Is this item one, Mr. President?
I am, see, he's so nasty.
Just get back to the item.
HollywoodHighlands.org. Housing, repair, urgent repair. HollywoodHighlands.org.
This is regarding Prop K.
Okay, Mr. Herman, please come forward. And Mr. Herman, I owe you an apology. Last or the week before last, you were not allowed to speak. I think that's my bad for moving too fast, but I want to try to give the sergeants more time to turn the cards in. I didn't get your card, and once I start, there's no additional card, so I owe you an apology, and I hope you'll accept it.
I accept your apology. You're very manly to bring this point up.
Thank you. Now
let's continue with business.
That's your time.
On item 1, in regards to communication from the LA Kids Steering Committee, I read in the Broadway paper, the local city paper, says that we're under the red at $2 million, $212 million to be exact. And yet, here we are looking at parks and recs to accommodate this Proposition K. It says here, we're adding 11 non-bonded Proposition K projects to the Proposition K bond series. So if we're in the red already, should we allocate more monies or bring money in to use on these projects? Let's be for real. I mean, yes, we do need them. We always needed them. But we can't keep dipping our hands into the piggy bank that was already allocated under these propositions. In other words, in simple mathematics, here we have money allocated, but yet we're leaving it there and it's just accumulating and going to waste, but yet we're asking for more money to dip into that fund, to pour into this fund, and then dipping out later to find out we don't have the resources. And Mr. Alarcon, you shake your head. Maybe you can explain it better to me or one of the councilmen, because the public would like to know how and where are we getting this funding, which, yes, the taxpayers voted for it, but at a time like this now, can't we step back and say, let's just finish these projects with the monies we have now and then proceed with future park and recs venues? So, yes, it sounds like I'm opposed to this, but no, I'm not. So let's take appropriate action and delegate the way we're going to measure the factors of these bonds through these projects under Proposition K bonds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Alarcon, you're on the queue, Mr. Alarcon. Richard?
Well, I just wanted to address the concerns that were raised by the last speaker. These are Prop K funds that were voted on by the public, and they are designated for parks projects. So we can't use them for anything else. That's all they can be used for. I understand the question you raise about how can we spend money in one area when we are running out of money in other areas. And the answer is very simple. The taxpayers voted to pay this tax for the purpose of providing, improving our park system. And it has to be used for that. It can only be used for that, nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon, for that clarification. Let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Mr. Englander, did you called 18 special, I believe? Yes. Are you prepared? Sure. Well, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Members, 18, I don't know, quite frankly, a lot about it. I just had a sidebar conversation with the city attorney's office. They are proposing to lease space in Long Beach and move out of the city. I guess some of the criminal cases have been moved. I'm not asking any comments from the city attorney's office now. I appreciate you stepping up. unless somebody else has comments. I'd rather go ahead and send this over to the Budget and Finance deliberations and committee. There's a cost of approximately $100,000 a year for a 5-year lease plus moving expenses when we're in city property and free rent now. So I just wanted to get cost-benefit analysis and look at that in the Budget Committee. I've talked to the Budget Chair who supports this, Mr. Krikorian, as well. So I'm asking all members if we can send this over to the budget deliberations as part of our budget process. Thank you.
Okay, let's, Mr. Buscaino.
That's fine.
Mr. Buscaino. And Mr. Englander, I would be prepared to send it to Budget and Finance.
Mr. President,
yes.
I don't have a problem moving it to budget. I just had a couple questions from the City Attorney's Office, if they can come up, please.
You guys almost got away.
So, I've worked Harbor area as a senior lead officer. Oftentimes we got to go to Long Beach to file cases. And oftentimes we asked in roll call as police officers, why are we going across the bridge to do just that? So can you just explain to us why are we looking at going to Long Beach?
Yes, I'll do my best. Earl Thomas, I'm Chief of Criminal Division in the City Attorney's Office. Thank you. Good morning, Your Honorable Council members. The reason is because basically we're just trying to follow our cases. Many years ago, the Superior Court moved all criminal cases from the court in San Pedro, which was right across the street from our office in City Hall, in order to save money on the court's budget, a security issue. On criminal cases, as you know, you have to have security in the courtroom. So in order to save money, the court decided they were not going to pay for marshals or sheriffs to be present in those courtrooms on criminal cases in order to save that expense. So the cases had to be handled, they had to be moved somewhere. The Superior Court decided at that time, over our objection, to move our criminal cases to the Long Beach courthouse. This created a serious problem for us because we now have an office and a staff of attorneys, prosecutors, and a staff of administrative personnel, but our cases are now being handled in the Long Beach courthouse, which meant that we had to move our prosecutors from the San Pedro office to the Long Beach courthouse in order to prosecute our cases. That created a whole range of problems, the main problem of which is you have our prosecutors in one courthouse and we have an office in another location. So we have an office in San Pedro, but we have to staff courts in Long Beach. We have tried through the years to get the Superior Court to send those criminal cases back to the San Pedro courthouse or to move them to a closer location so we could consolidate. The court has flat out refused to do that and has given no indication that they intend to do that. So we're stuck with having our prosecutors in the Long Beach courthouse and our staff, our supervisors, our administrative staff in San Pedro. So what we're trying to do with this recommendation is to move our office to a location which is literally across the street from the courthouse so that we can again create the efficiencies that we used to have. In the meantime, our filing operation, to answer your question directly, was moved downtown. So our San Pedro cases are filed by our filing team in the downtown office, which then requires that LAPD personnel who needs to get those cases reviewed, where they used to be able to go to the San Pedro office to get that done, they now have to come downtown to have those cases filed by our filing team in the downtown branch, but the cases are heard in the Long Beach courthouse. We're simply trying to consolidate that so that we can better utilize the resources that we have on all the criminal cases that we prosecute.
And from what I understand, based on what you're saying, it's pretty much the criminal courts and the courts are not playing with us or not being fair and not being reasonable when it comes to these costs. Is that my understanding?
Actually, they were somewhat reasonable over the last couple of years, to be honest with you, because this we actually prevailed upon the court to move the cases out of the Hollywood courthouse to the downtown courthouse, which enabled us to close our Hollywood branch. That's something that we did not want to do, but we don't have any prosecutors, nor do we have any cases in the Hollywood branch anymore. They're all being done downtown, which did create some savings. We also shut down our Chatsworth branch, even though we still have prosecutors in the San Fernando location. We shut down our Chatsworth office in order to create savings from the lease at that location. But with San Pedro, it's like a special, unique kind of situation, and the court so far has told us flat out they're not going to do it, and the budget situation for the courts is growing increasingly worse. They are currently in the process right now, as we speak, of closing down both civil courts as well as criminal courts in order to save money in the court's budget. So they are not really giving much of an audience to our problems.
Again, colleagues, I feel that San Pedro gets the short end of the stick here. What we're doing is pulling public safety resources away by going across the bridge to file these cases in Long Beach. So I have all the faith, trust, and confidence in the committee to bring this up and maybe even work with the county to maybe offset some of these costs as well. So thank you for your time, and thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
If the courts were in San Pedro, you'd rather be in San Pedro.
Absolutely.
I'd want to be in San Pedro, but everything's being consolidated, and I don't like it, and it is more than just over the St. Vincent Thomas Bridge. It's got to go over a few bridges to get there, 2 bridges. So that collaboration makes it easier because time is money as far as distance. So the committee concerned this, and the city attorney, I'm sure, doesn't like this, but he has to look for the efficiency. So, Joe, I want to support San Pedro, but I think it's because the county's challenges, and they're closing courthouses here. I just was on jury duty. They closed on Wednesdays, I believe it was. I'd have to support it.
Yes, I would just like to concur and say, we don't want this.
Right.
This is something we don't want to do. We're not asking to do this because this is something we desire to do. We just feel like we have to be near where our cases are being prosecuted in order to actually even be able to do our fundamental job, which is prosecute the cases. So if we had our druthers, the cases would go back to San Pedro and we could stay in the San Pedro office like it used to be, but that isn't the case anymore.
Okay, I understand that. But I think what we can do, Mr. Englander, is we could ask Mr. Krikorian to take a look at it, and maybe there's a way we can apply, give you some assistance where it relates to the budget people at the court. I don't know. So we'll send it to budget, and hopefully it'll be quickly vetted and then be back before us. Do we have any deadline issues or?
No, I don't think so, sir.
So why don't you let us take a gander at it for a little bit and see if we can't help you in some way.
We appreciate that.
Okay, now on this item, I have a card, Arminet Norajanian.
Good morning, respected city council members. Good morning, fellow Angelinos. As a liberal Democrat veteran for California State Assembly from Southwest Los Angeles, I actually oppose this resolution I-18 and ask city council members to vote against it. Because this is, represents, in my opinion, just wasteful spending. You see, the crux of the matter that the city attorney's office will pay $104,000 dollars per annual lease, not including even parking fees. So this kind of any savings in comparison with courier service, you know, are incomparable actually with gross amount of rent, you know, which will be paid for the new Long Beach office of the city state attorney, as the amount of $104,000, roughly $105,000. Well, actually, I oppose wasteful spending in this case, and definitely do ask city council member to vote against this resolution, because it actually wasteful spending. And you save some money, with annual rent, and even courier services will cost about approximately $1,300. They're actually too infinitesimally small, in comparison with a gross rent of $4,000 plus parking fees. Well, what's about it?
Okay. So on this item, Mr. City Attorney, the appropriate action would just be to move it to, okay, so do we have to vote on that?
It can be referred without objection or voted upon.
Okay, so it'll be referred to budget without objection. And next, at Mr. Garcetti's request, if we could take up item 22. I have two cards on that subject, John Walsh and Mr. Herman, if you could please come forward. John Walsh and Mr. Herman, this is on item 22.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. There's a new post up today. This is, and Happy May Day. Did I mention that before? I have a poor memory. This is the summer youth employment. This is an area where New York City leads you. Because in New York City, every high school kid in the city is pretty much guaranteed a summer job. That's why they didn't have any racial rioting in 40 years there, and we had one that we just celebrated because of summer youth employment. In LA, you got to know somebody to get a job. You really do. If you're a kid in New York, you just show up and there's a job for you. HollywoodHighlands.org. Obama says come all over the city right now, May Day.
Thank you. Mr. Herman.
Well, we heard a civil question as to how youth can be employed for summer programs. Is there such a budget now in Los Angeles to put these additional funds in good use for the youth? We know today that many children lack services under reconstruction of how to program themselves for the summer. Meaning what? Meaning, where can they go to even volunteer, take participation in programs that the city has not made available to them? And if it has, then let's make it more public. As Mr. Walsh said, New York has a great way of advocating for youth. But what's happening here in Los Angeles, I don't know. And that's why maybe at this point, under this sector of summer youth employment programs, let's take into business how council can be effective and bringing together your ideas to put the children to work this summer. Put our children in programs that maybe can help the elderly in programs. Maybe go to schools and read for children under youth, or even better so, children with disabilities. And so if there are programs of volunteer services, make it open. Make it open and inviting to our youth. Because even I would volunteer this summer to assist any program that you may have, Mr. Garcetti or Mr. Parks, Mr. LaBonge. I will personally go there, and I will sit there for as much time as you want me to read to children, to speak to children, and be active in helping them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And yesterday I was in Mr. Huizar's district speaking to a group of mothers who live in the Pico Aliso area who were telling me about just how important it is for the young people that are in their community, which is mirrored in communities in South Los Angeles, which is mirrored in communities in East Hollywood, which is mirrored throughout, that we need jobs for our young people. We have 50,000 young people that don't have a job, are not in school, and are not in the criminal justice system. And when we look at this, I know that a number of folks, Mr. Weezar has done this, I know Ms. Perry and Mr. Parks and others, we've been in the face of cutbacks at the national level, been finding money to be able to try to do more youth employment here. The mayor's office as well has done so through Higher LA Youth Employment Program. It used to be, in the 70s and the 80s, there was a consensus between Democrats and Republicans in Congress that youth employment was good for our cities. The programs Mr. Walsh spoke about in New York have been decimated. They don't actually exist at the level that they used to, just like ours have been decimated. So we're taking money that we found here, some savings from AB 1290 monies, to do what we did last summer, to put $100,000 to get young people in my district working. And the statistics are staggering. I think we look at the number of youth between 16 and 24 that are employed. In 2002, it was 63.3%. It's now 48.8% in just 10 years. Less than half of those young people can find a job. And when you look at African American youth and Latino youth, this past July, only 35% of African American youth and only 43% of Latino youth had a job. So this rise in unemployment necessitates the need to make sure these young people have a safe place to be, to cut crime, to build their skills, to be able to link to a permanent job as well. And for young people who are interested, please visit our Community Development Department at cdd.lacity.org, and you can click on the Summer Jobs Program. It's /u_emp.html. You can find yourself a job there for the summertime. Sign up now because of the limited number. You got to get out there and hustle, get your resumes together. We'll teach you those skills, and let's make sure this summer is as safe as we possibly can make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to reflect on last year when Mr. Alarcon made a challenge regarding this program, and he made a challenge that we support this, and last year we did support this. In my district, we supported it. Mr. Alarcon supported it, and Mr. Garcetti, thank you for bringing it up. We will again support this. I think the folks are paid $8 an hour, if I'm not mistaken, to do this work, and they do all kinds of work in the community. Mr. Herman, I invite you to come to the 3rd Council District in the far west San Fernando Valley. We don't need to read to the students, the children, the workers. We need them to get out there and help maintain what the city used to do. We don't have the resources to. So I invite you to come out. We're going to be supporting that program once again. It does a great opportunity to help our communities. So, Mr. Alarcon, how much are you going to do this year? How much are you going to do this year, Mr. Alarcon? Whatever I do. Okay, we will get together and figure out how much that's going to be. Last year it was like $200,000, if I recall. A substantial amount of money that we put together. So I think all the council officers are receptive to that. But you're looking for a place to land, Mr. Herman, come to the 3rd District. We'll take care of you out there. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Alarcon.
Yeah, I too want to rise and commend Mr. Garcetti for this motion. But I need to make this very clear. Mr. Zine and I have the benefit of a very healthy what is called AB 1290 fund. I also have the Lopez Canyon fund. Most of the council districts don't have that kind of flexible funding available to them, so they cannot use it. They cannot do that, and that's so that's why I wanted to make it clear, because I don't want it to appear that we're trying to one-up anybody. The fact is we have available money, and we want to create jobs for our kids. The other thing I wanted to mention is it wasn't a challenge. It was merely me having resources in my district and wanting them to go to create summer youth employment jobs. I intend to do the same thing this year. We created over 100 jobs in the 7th Council District with that additional money, and I intend to do the same. But some of the council districts, frankly, don't have those kinds of resources. Citywide, we need to get kids to work during the summer. It's the best way for them to utilize their time, not only with supervised activity that is productive, where they're learning something about city government or business or other elements in our community, but most importantly, they get to take some money so that they can pay for their clothing and help out the family with food and other necessities. That's the primary benefit of this. So it's unfortunate the federal government has cut these funds, and I can't think of a better way to use government funding in light of the era dollars, in light of the bailout money to the banks. This is money that goes directly into the communities, and because, by virtue of it being part of a payroll, circulates in our community several times. It's good money for our community and benefits everyone, not just the kids that take advantage of it.
Okay, on this item, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
What's the next item, Madam Clerk?
Item 17, call special for cards.
Mr. John Walsh, Mr. Herman, and Armanek Noorajanian. Please come forward, Mr. Walsh, followed by Mr. Herman and Armanek Noorajanian. Mr. John Walsh.
John Walsh, HollywoodHighlands.org. 224,000 successful server requests since the March 18th. Okay, this is SEIU, our new friends. You know, I was the most wanted at SEIU. They had posters on me at SEIU. Now I'm their best friend since they copycatted. And incidentally, I'm 100% in favor of this SEIU special reception. I think you should give them wine. You should give them vintage wine. You should spend thousands and thousands of dollars
Mr. President,
on
this is regarding the Housing Department.
23?
No, Mr. Walsh, we're on item 17.
Oh, I'll come back.
Okay. Mr. Herman and Mr. Noorajanian.
Council members, fellow citizens of Los Angeles, what is the effective plan for LA Housing Department here on item 17? What is effective? We already know that LA Housing Department is under investigation, not just by the FBI, but I'm sure the council members are taking that opportunity as well for abuse and misuse. But again, here it says LA Housing Department estimates that up to $300,000 will be available for the first year of a proposed contract. Well, let's keep it only on 1 year of a contract, because let's see how good, how well, and how appropriate this effective plan of theirs will be before we sign a contract that allows them an additional 2 years, a total of 3 years, correct? To some degree? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Noorajanian.
Good morning, respectable city council members. Good morning, fellow Angelinos. Actually, I ask city council members to vote against this resolution 17, as it actually excludes competitive bidding, you know, and actually. Well, actually, I would like city council members to devise a new resolution that would include competitive bidding, so that our construction companies would be able to compete with AG, Pacific Construction Development Corporation, look like a German company. Well, actually, you know, it was a recent was resolution. I've seen quite a piece that dismissed competitive bidding. But I believe that competitive bidding is very important for a city, you know, to receive those high quality services at the lowest amount, lowest possible price, you know. And actually, that's why competitive bidding is very important. And that AG, Pacific Construction and Development Corporation, shouldn't become an exception to those competitive bidding rules. It is violation of federal rules, and federal government, I believe, should actually prosecute, you know, members of the city government, you know, for violating competitive bidding rules, you know. And actually, this AG Pacific Construction Development Corporation may actually rip off the city, you know, because we will charge the highest amount of money possible, knowing that you got dismissed competitive bidding, which is a big mistake in my opinion. Big mistake on the city government to dismiss competitive bidding, to dismiss the rules of fairness and, or business practices that's actually been
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, on this item, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, that brings us to, is it item 19 or?
Yes, item 19, call special for cards.
Okay, Mr. Herman, I've been informed that your time has expired. That's why you were only given 1 minute the last time. And Mr. Walsh, where is he on time? Mr. Walsh, come forward. Oh, you're passing on 19? Okay, so on this one, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Oh, well, Mr. Englander, that's my mistake. So let's vote on reconsideration of this item. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote. Yes, Mr. Englander.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. President. On this item, I'm sorry? On this item, I didn't see a report on this, and although from what I've learned from the fire department, this is a great deal in concept, that we're going to move the station, that they're going to give us a free station, but there is no report on it. Not sure who's actually doing the negotiations, whether it's the CLA or whether it's GSD. There's no budget report in the cost of ITA, build out, moving the equipment, etc. And so I was asking if we can get a report before we actually vote so we know exactly what we're going to be voting on. I also understood there's some issues with the existing fire station where USC originally, this is part of their development project, where they were going to raise the building, and now they've found out that it's a historic monument. And so I think we need to really look at what the deal is on this to make sure we're not on the hook for any financial obligations we're unaware of before we approve it, even in concept.
Mr. Parks, for a clarification?
The document that's with the report reflects that we've instructed the CLA to negotiate a MOU. This is part of Station 15 being moved to 30-some-hundred block of Hoover initially. SC was going to move them to property that they owned at Jefferson in Vermont. They decided that they prefer to buy a piece of property on Hoover and move the station. It's not any cost to the city, the property, or building the facility. The fire department supports the location and the facility, and it will allow them to move the fire station off of their pending project.
Mr. Englander, I think we might want to defer to the council representative of that area, or at least that's my recommendation to you.
I agree with that. The only part I'm bringing up, and I support this 100%. It says no cost. We haven't heard from USC that there's no that they're willing to pick up the tab, and we have no indication from them or no letter of support saying that they're going to pick up the entire tab of all costs and all related or unrelated costs.
They're the ones that brought up the proposal. If they want the property in their project area, they will build a station to move the current station.
So we've got somebody from USC here as well?
Are you from USC? Okay, then maybe you can clarify this for us.
I'm Brian League. I'm with the University of Southern California Real Estate. The university is committed to fund the relocation and construct a new fire station at 100% of the university's cost. We've been working with the fire department. I understand this motion is just to begin that formal process of negotiation, but we are committed to fund the cost 100%.
Thank you very much. Mr. LaBonge?
Mr. Parks, I'm familiar with this, and in a previous area there, the 901 was there, the 901 East West Jefferson, the 901 was a little place there, and then it moved to Figueroa in a redevelopment. The SC didn't pay for that, but they're going to pay for this, and they're a good part of the community there, so I stand to support Mr. Parks, and I see the fire chief's representatives here. He's okay with it, so let's move forward.
Mr. Englander, does that elevate your comfort level?
Well, now that Mr. LaBonge is comfortable, I'm comfortable, yes. And I was absolutely behind Mr. Parks 100% on this. I think it's a great deal. I just had the question for USC. They've answered it now. And so I'm on board. But the historic element and having that institutional knowledge that Mr. LaBonge brings every day just puts us over the top. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. So on this item, let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next.
Item 23, call special for cards.
Mr. Walsh, this is the item you requested. After that, Mr. Noorajanian. And how much time does Mr. Noorajanian have left?
I have a couple of days left in my life.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Noorajanian, and so do you, Mr. Walsh. Welcome again.
Thank you. Incidentally, I'm raising your grade. You now get B++ for the way you're running the meeting. You only had 1+ before. HollywoodHighlands.org. Find out at Quantcast, 20% of the people who come to this website are under 18. That's our SEO, 20%. And predominantly Hispanics come to my website. That's the SEO. That's not me. That's Quantcast. I just want to point out that SEO is doing a fantastic job, and they're copycatting me, and now they are calling for Antonio Villaraigosa to step down as chairman of the Democratic Party convention. We're 100% in favor of it. Goodbye, folks. Come into the streets right now. We are going to take over the city. Occupy LA. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Armanek, you knew I called you. You should already be. I'm in a good mood. You should already be at the podium.
Sorry.
Go ahead. 1 minute.
Yeah, thanks so much. Good morning, City Council members. Good morning, fellow Angelinos. My name is Armanek Nujayan. I'm a liberal Democrat and human rights advocate. Actually, I belong to the United Service Workers Union, as I'm caregiver, professional caregiver myself. Actually, I'm very glad that this reception, special reception will be given, to honor, the rally of United Service Workers local 1877 in the City Hall of Tom Bradley Room. But actually, the small sum of $696 from the unappropriated balance fund is not enough, I believe, to accommodate this special reception. Maybe I propose that city council members maybe raise that money to up to $3,000, something like that, so that it be more appropriate sum for the special reception.
Thank you. What's before us now, Madam Clerk?
Council should vote on item 23 first.
Okay, let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
I knew that, Madam Clerk. I was just testing you, okay? Anyway, now, where are we at?
Council has motions for post and referral.
Consider them posted and referred.
There's an excuse in the desk. Councilmember Krikorian requests to be excused on May 2nd for city business.
As hard as he's working without objection.
That clears the desk.
Okay, announcements, members? Announcements? Mr. LaBonge.
Along with Mr. Garcetti, we're going to have our first 5K run walk on the Los Angeles River this coming up Sunday on the 6th. It will be started at 7 in the morning. Come right out to Los Feliz Boulevard and the river. We're going to go ride. We're going to look for Avak to join us as well. He's usually a Silver Lake walker. We want you to walk on the river and enjoy and love Los Angeles and the revitalized Los Angeles River.
Thank you, Mr. LaBonge. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I encourage all of my constituents to attend tonight's Board of Neighborhood Commissioners meeting at the Port of Los Angeles High School, multi-purpose room 250 West 5th Street, kicks off at 6 p.m. Again, the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners meeting tonight in San Pedro at the Port of Los Angeles High School, multi-purpose room 250 West 5th Street, kicks off at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, any more announcements? Okay, let's everyone in the chamber please rise. Everybody please rise. For adjourning motions, I need everybody to please rise. Adjourning motions, members. Mr. Labange.
Thank you. Members, I ask we adjourn in memory of Mickey McCullough. Mickey McCullough lived a good life, a great life. He died just 1 year short of his 80th birthday. He's married to his lovely wife, Dawn, who was the publisher of the Larchmont Chronicle. And they moved to Fallbrook many, many years ago. He was a good business person in the Larchmont Village area. Maybe remember Mickey McCullough.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, I ask that we adjourn in memory of George Cabrera Sr. He is the father of George Cabrera Jr., who is an active member of the El Sereno community in Council District 14. And Mr. George Cabrera Jr. helps coordinate a memorial Veterans Day events each and every year. George Cabrera Sr. was born on October 20th, 1923, and passed away peacefully at 89 years old. He was married to Gloria Cabrera for 59 years and lived in the Hillside Village area in El Sereno for nearly 50 years. Together they had 9 children, 5 boys and 4 girls. Mr. Cabrera was a World War II veteran from 1942 to 1945, rising to the rank of Master Sergeant. He was a member of the 8th Army Corps, serving as radio operator and aerial gunner. His platoon flew over Berlin, Germany, on several bombing missions. He owned Sunset Printers in Alhambra for 26 years. He will always be remembered as a brother, dedicated husband, father, grandfather, and cherished member of his family and community of the Hillside Village area of El Sereno.
Any other adjourning motions?
All members. Okay.
Any other adjourning motions? This council meeting is adjourned.